Okay, at 5:30 p.m., I'm going to call the meeting to order. If I could please have a roll call.
Commissioner Brewer,
Here.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Here.
Commissioner McCowan, Commissioner Jablonski,
Here.
Commissioner Byrd,
Here.
Commissioner McClure,
Here.
Commissioner Griffith, Commissioner Kendall,
Here.
Commissioner Parker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Starting with our consent docket, item number 1, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of the minutes as follows. Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 12th, 2026. Does any member of the commission wish to remove any item from the consent docket? Any member of the audience wish to remove any item from the consent docket? Seeing none, I would take a motion
Move to approve.
Second.
and a vote.
You may vote. Been cast, passes 7-0.
Hi, good evening. Kelly Abel with the Planning Department. Okay, tonight we have a rezoning from R1 Single Family Dwelling District to SPUD, Simple Planned Unit Development. There is kind of an overview of everything on the map with the subject tract. The character area is core neighborhood. The AIM land use is mixed use. Here's kind of an overview of the property. It's circled in red. The applicant is proposing a residential unit on the second floor and a low-intensity commercial unit on the first floor for a tattoo studio. No expansion of the building is planned, and all activity will take place within the existing building footprint. Here are some current pictures of the property. As you can see, it does have two driveways. There's one on the west and one on the east. This is facing south. This is facing west. This is facing east. Here is the site plan, which is also Exhibit B in the packet. We did have 1.7% protest within the notification area. And the proposal is consistent with the AIM Norman plan, as it does preserve the existing structure without significant changes to the height or setbacks, which maintains the compatibility with the residential area while establishing a mixed-use environment. I believe Ben is here from, I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. Ben LaCourse is here with the applicant to review what they sent in for a presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Okay. Does any member of commission have any questions for staff on this item? Okay. Seeing none, I would take the applicant presentation. Thank you.
Ben LaCourse on behalf of the applicant, Ken and Sarah Hall. Kelly did a great job with an overview, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. Like she said, we are at 521 East Frank Street. Just to the east is North Finley Avenue, and to the west is, I believe, North Ponca Avenue. Zoning currently R1 single family. We are proposing to rezone to a SPUD. Like Kelly said, future land use is mixed use. Character area is core, and I'll touch on this later on. We are wholly compliant with AIM Norman here. Site plan and overview. Rezoning to a SPUD, there'll be no change to the current building, so we're not knocking anything down, we're not building anything, everything's gonna be happening within those current buildings. We'd like to retain R1 uses throughout the property while adding I know it says low limited impact commercial on the ground floor. I believe the SPUD actually, the specific language in the SPUD is low impact personal service uses, and specifically names tattoo studio by way of an example. And just a summary of the request, we just went over a lot of this, wholly consistent with AIM Norman. So when we did, full transparency here, when we did submit this, I guess, this PowerPoint slide, there were no formal protests at the time. We did have a late protest that Kelly did mention, so that's why it says no formal protest right there. So just so for full transparency there. And like she said, the proposal is consistent with AIM Norman. I think she read this exact same quote, so I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions by commissioners for the applicant? Okay, if there are none, I would move on. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to any audience comments. Are there any audience comments for this item? Okay. Seeing none, we could move on to Planning Commission discussion. Is there any discussion of this item? Okay. Seeing on, moving on, we could move to taking a motion. Just one sec, we'll get the microphones on.
Am I ready?
Yeah.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
And a vote?
You may vote. Been cast. Motion passes 7-0.
Moving on to our next items, we're going to read items 3, 4, and 5 together, starting with item number 3, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2526-43, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove the tract of land being a part of the northwest quarter, southwest quarter, and southeast quarter of section 35, Township 9 North, Range 3 West of the Indian Meridian to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from a PUD, Plan Unit Development, and place the same in a PUD, Plan Unit Development, and providing for the severability thereof, generally located south of West Main Street, west of Ed Noble Parkway, north of West Lindsay Street, and east of 36th Avenue Southwest, Ward 3. Item number 4, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance PP-2526-15, consideration of a preliminary plat submitted by Bob Moore Farms North LLC, SMC Consulting Engineers PC for Bob Moore Farms North, a planned unit development for 55.7 acres of property generally located approximately 1/4 mile south of West Main Street on the east side of 36th Avenue Southwest. And item number 5, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2526-46, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, closing and vacating a portion of Norman Center Court right-of-way to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, and providing for the severability thereof. I would take the staff present.
Good evening, Logan Gray with the Planning Department. So as stated, we have a rezoning as well as a preliminary plat and closing and vacation of a portion of the right-of-way on Norman Center Court. You can see the current zoning here is PUD. As stated, this PUD was adopted in 2024. The biggest change that is being proposed here with this new PUD is that it removes commercial uses from the list of allowed uses, and it also amends the site plan. There are several other changes as well. The character area you can see here is corridor. Future land use is urban living center there in the brown through most of the subject tract, as well as the southeastern corner there. There's also parts that are urban high, and then the northernmost part is mixed use there in the purple. The existing land use is vacant. To the north, you've got mostly commercial, north and east, mostly commercial uses. To the south and west, largely single-family residential uses. There are some commercial and multifamily uses to the northwest of the subject tract. You can see those here on the aerial. This is looking northeast on 36th Avenue at the entrance, the proposed entrance on Willow Bend Road. This is looking east on 36th at the subject property. This is the portion of the right-of-way that they're proposing to close. This is the preliminary, or this is the greenscape plan. Here's the revised preliminary plat. This is the revised preliminary site plan. It's a zoomed in version of the revised preliminary site plan. This phase 1 preliminary site plan was submitted with the application, but it was not included in the PUD narrative as an exhibit. Here is the right-of-way closure that is being proposed. And here's the protest map. We had 3.9% protest within the notification area. Staff is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff by commission? I have a couple that I can go off of, and then if there's any others we can add. Starting with just a clarification point, I know there was a change to the actual map. Would you just confirm that in the current site plan that is submitted, there is no ingress and egress across the library parcel?
Yeah, and I will defer to one of my colleagues here from Public Works that is present to speak on that. Are you referring to the site plan?
Yeah, so I understand that there was an earlier site plan that was revised since the Friday when the original agenda went out. And originally, there was this drive that connected to what would be the parking lot for the library parcel, and that was the crux of the protest letter we received from the library.
Correct.
But this site plan does appear to no longer show that ingress-egress point and is revised. I just wanted to have that clarification. Thank you. While you're there, I also, just as a clarification, there was a traffic splitter in addition to the circular roundabout common area, and my understanding is that median, that right now from the library, you cannot make a direct left. You would have to turn right and circle around the roundabout, but that traffic splitter median will also be removed. So now that exiting the library from their rear point, they will be able to make a left turn. Can you confirm that for me too? Ken Danner confirmed it, but if you would just also confirm.
Confirmed. On behalf of Ken Danner.
Thank you. And as one more clarification on the traffic, the site plan does include a portion of the legal description that goes across Willow Bend, and we received some other protest letters relating to that and some clarification on if any portion of the right-of-way and the street of Willow Bend would be closed, or will it instead be still dedicated to the public and an open road down there on the
I believe it'll be dedicated to the public.
Okay, great. Those were my questions for staff, and really just clarifications of things I already knew. I apologize. And are there any other questions by commissioners for staff? Okay, you're good. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. I have some questions. So it looked like there were some inconsistencies with how the city wanted this area to be developed, that it was lower density than what the city was looking for, and there was a lack of mixed use. Can you give me an idea of what the city's plans for development are in this part of the city?
Yeah, so what's outlined in AIM, let me see here, let me find that portion. My apologies as I navigate my staff report. So speaking to mixed use, the urban high land use policy does does express the desire to see more mixed-use buildings, including retail, workspaces, along with residences. And as is proposed, it is currently just single-use multifamily residential. Regarding densities, I believe so as proposed, this is 14 units per acre. AIM would like to see at least 18 units per acre for the urban living center future land use category.
Thank you.
So ultimately, higher densities, just more mixed uses in this area.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners for staff? Okay, seeing none, I would take the applicant presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Libby Smith on behalf of the applicant. All right, so this is the aerial of the location. It's just south of West Main Street and east of 36th Avenue Southwest. The land use is urban high, urban living center, and mixed use, and then the character area is predominantly corridor. The existing zoning is planned unit development. We came through with a planned unit development in 2024, and then this is that site plan that was attached to that zoning. So you can see kind of in the smaller version, all that red was preliminary plan to be commercial. And with this request, we are coming back and asking for the entire property to be multifamily residential. And then with that, we're doing a site plan revision. So here is a better look at the comparison between the previously approved PUD site plan and what we're proposing now. So here we have all multifamily residential buildings. There's also been significant redesign of the streets within the property. We think this will be much better for the neighbors, as this kind of will slow down traffic, and all the vehicular entrances to the property will be gated, and so there won't be any cut-through traffic from Main Street down to Willow Bend Road. So here's a preliminary site plan of the whole property, and then I'll skip one slide so it's kind of zoomed in, but just wanted to see the whole property. You can see all the development is planned on that north half, and then the bottom half is just going to be green space and drainage. So this will be the development part of the property. We are planning 2 phases, with the first phase being 444 units and the second phase being 360 for a total dwelling units of 804. There's a maximum height of 4 stories throughout the property to increase that density. And then all the vehicular accesses will be gated. We're also including extensive amenities and landscaping, and this is an improvement from the previous site plan. Then also just some quotes from the staff report is the proposed maximum height of 4 stories is generally consistent with the surrounding zoning. And then the proposed development includes landscaping buffers to promote a smooth transition to nearby lower density residential areas. So here's the preliminary plat. This is split into 2 lots that correspond with the phase 1 and the phase 2. It is a very green development with 43% green space. And then, like I said, we'll have a lot of private amenities, including a pool in each phase, a clubhouse in each phase, pickleball courts, walking trails throughout the development, and then lots of landscape green spaces. And another quote from the staff report is the proposed development includes pedestrian amenities tying into existing sidewalks along 36th Ave Southwest and Norman Center Court, providing pedestrian access to private recreational amenities within the development. For these reasons, the proposal is consistent with the Urban Living Center land use policy. And then here are some proposed renderings, especially highlighting that landscape green space. This is a lot prettier rendering than we usually have, so just take a minute to enjoy it. And then also some interior spaces. And we did have a protest from the library, which is the direct north neighbor. So this is the originally filed site plan. And then I'll kind of zoom in on this Norman Center Court was the main purpose of that protest. And as originally designed, we contemplated kind of just an extra large driveway connecting the driveway to this property and the library. The library did not like that, so we worked with them and redesigned to this. So remove that connection, move that entrance further into the cul-de-sac. And the library did approve this revised version of the site plan. So while we're kind of in the area, the other part of this request, in addition to the rezoning and the preliminary plat, is the closure of part of Norman Center Court. So that kind of highlighted circle area is Norman Center Court. And you can see with the phase 1, we don't anticipate to redo that cul-de-sac at all. This is only for phase 2. So for phase 1, which will be the first phase of development and much sooner than phase 2, that cul-de-sac will remain as it exists and will take access as shown. And then phase 2 will come through and we'll actually do the vacation in district court and make kind of that area that was the cul-de-sac more usable space for the residents, and then we'll redesign the cul-de-sac at that point. So just a summary of the request is we're just asking to rezone from PUD to PUD to remove the commercial uses and amend the site plan. We'll have a total of 804 total dwelling units. We received unanimous approval at Parks Board for fee in lieu with all those amenities on site for the residents, and then 43% green space with the closure of the right-of-way. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant from commissioners? One moment.
Ready? Real quick, I want to go back. I know the first time this was presented, a lot of the concern was that there would be a cut-through. What you're saying is a cut-through is gone, and it's a gated community. It's going to be gated?
Correct.
So that will eliminate that issue or that concern from the initial
Exactly.
plans.
I think there are 4 entrances to the property, or 3, or 1 from Norman Center Court, and then 3 on Willow Bend, and all 4 of them will be gated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you. Can you remind me what the development looked like before? Was it 6-story?
So
Is my memory
I
right?
go back, if I can get a picture.
And I'll tell you where I'm going with that.
Sure.
I'm thinking about the density. Was there a decrease in the density from the original PUD?
No, there was about a 200 unit increase. Those shown in the blue were 2 stories, and then I believe the yellow were 4. And so the new proposal has a 200 unit increase from the previous.
Can I ask, we've seen presentations that development's not happening fast enough in Norman to, meet the housing needs. So why 4-story if in the center of town you can build taller?
I think that is just kind of what was planned. A lot of it is probably considerations on cost of going up higher than that changes the type of development. And then also just this is a pretty residential area to the west, so wanted to be kind of considerate to those neighbors.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I would move to audience comments. We have received a few cards up here. I'm going to start with Rebecca Patton, I apologize. And then just as a reminder, when you come up, please state your name and the address, or your address for the record. Let me know if you want the 30-second warning. Otherwise, I'll let you know when the 3 minutes is up.
I hope I don't need a 30-second, but give me one. My name is Rebecca Patton. I represent the Pioneer Library System. It's comprised of 3 counties, 10 cities, and 12 branch libraries, including Norman and Cleveland County. The administrative offices and the Norman West branch are located just north and east of the proposed development. I'm a little late to the game because the notice went to the address shown on the deed, which, when Pioneer bought the property in 2011, which is ironically that building where the Planning Commission now sits. But we eventually got it. And when I went to the Planning Department to learn the details a week ago, Wednesday, the site plan, as you noted, called for access to the development across the Pioneer driveway to get to both the dumpsters and to the apartments. I think that Libby showed you that map. I have copies of it if anybody wants to know what our concerns were.
Go back if you want.
Oh, I don't have any idea how to do this. So they can see this?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah,
my,
they have a
that's
little screen.
that's very magical. Okay, so you don't need my paper that I brought. So we scurried around and tried to figure out how to deal with that. And then on the day that we filed our protest last Friday, apparently there was the revised site plan was also filed, and it moved the access point to a separate location, which is shown on the materials in your packets. Thank you. Okay. Usually my son does this for me, but I would have to say we're glad that they're not going to try and use the Pioneer parking lot or driveway to get into the development. We wish it could be a little bit further away. It's about 30 feet away, I think, right now. It seems to me that that there is going to be some traffic issues, and Sean Holtman, who is the security and safety coordinator for the Pioneer Library System, is going to talk a little bit about traffic flow, particularly with the new development that Pioneer is doing. We're adding some outdoor programming space to help increase our planning space, our programming space, while we're waiting for the central library to be fixed. But I understand that things move quickly on these matters. I'm
30
learning that.
seconds.
Okay, and I want to make it easy to identify the applicable site plan. There's been some changes. There's the one that's dated March 2nd, one that's dated March 6th. The one that's dated March 6th is the one that we want. I'm hoping that perhaps the zoning ordinance, the ordinance can refer to the site plan by its date instead of just saying the site plan. And I talked with Jane a bit about this earlier in the week, and she may have some suggestions.
Thank you very much for your
Okay,
time.
thank you. And then you're going to call him. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Our next is Sean Holtman. Same thing, just state your name and your address when you come up, and then let me know if you want a 30-second warning.
I don't think I need 30 seconds. I'll be brief. My name is Sean Holtman. I'm the Safety and Security Coordinator for Pioneer Library System. Address is 300 Norman Center Court. I was asked to speak about traffic volumes and share our concerns regarding the potential for increased traffic in the area. Current usage at that entrance has increased as a result of the ongoing remodeling project. If you look at the plan up there, the northeast corner of the building to the little leg sticking out there is being closed off, and that is going to become outdoor learning space for the library system. In doing that, we no longer have the roundabout access to our parking lot, which was utilized by customers and staff previously. Prior to the remodel, a small number of staff and our delivery vehicles were primarily the only things that used that entrance and exit. Since we've closed this off, now anybody coming through to use the book return, all of our deliveries, and most of the staff have to use that exit. We have approximately 26 people using our book return every day, on top of 70 staff members. The facility also functions as the shipping and receiving for the entire library system. Average about 9 delivery vehicles a day. That ranges everything from FedEx, UPS, all the way up to full-size semis that deliver books and items like that to our facilities. From there, we have a fleet of vehicles that we transport and distribute all of our programming and materials to our 11 branches. Our concern is that this proposed development would introduce significant additional residential traffic in close proximity to our access point. As Rebecca mentioned, 30 feet is very close to this area. What was once a low-volume service drive now functions as the primary entry and exit for our staff, deliveries, fleet vehicles, and members of the public. Because of this, the library system has concerns about how any nearby driveway access could affect safety, traffic flows, and the overall functioning of this location. That is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Brett Bradley.
Good evening. My name is Brett Bradley. I'm a business professor at the University of Oklahoma, and my home backs up to some of the lot that is being considered for some of these changes. I encourage you as representatives for me and for other neighbors to reject the change to full apartments. I find the mixed use plan that the city recommends reasonable, the lesser of two evils, so to speak. I find the chicken coop style of housing unacceptable as a neighbor in that area. Number two, I strongly encourage you to reject the closure of the right-of-way. My biggest concern is a lack of transparency on the development side as to what that would mean and what they would do. My yard backs up to the space that would be impacted by that. It could be for a reasonable use, but the lack of transparency to me is very, very troubling. Please reject both of those changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also have Cheryl Tatum.
Hello, Cheryl Tatum at 3217 Riverwalk. I did submit the official protest because my home, and I don't have a fancy thing, so in the green little spot here, that triangle I think you recognize from the map, my home does back up right to there. So the apartments are going right across, from where my home is. And so I think the concerns mostly lie, and I think when Chair Bird was asking some questions at the beginning, I'm still confused, right? So I think there is still kind of that lack of clear understanding or transparency about what's happening with that Willow Bend Road, because the information I received looks like that was going to be closed, but then I think you asked questions that perhaps indicate maybe it won't. Then that's what I really want to make sure, that road is not closed, right? I want to continue to be able to drive back there. I walk my puppy there every day, that's my neighborhood. But then also not to have those apartments feel like they're getting closer and closer, and I don't want them to come that 20 feet closer, from the road. And so if we're 100% clear, that's not what's happening. But then also to your question about, the height of the apartments, right? That is a concern for us. So even at the 4 stories right now, will they be able to see in my backyard? I definitely in the future, because this keeps changing, right? So I don't want them coming back in the future and saying, now it's 6 stories, now it's 8 stories, because I don't want people being able to peer into my backyard. And then finally, because it just feels like constant change and not really knowing what's going to happen in that field behind us, then I, again, don't want it to continue to expand now across the road and into that field behind us. So those are the concerns that I'm bringing forward right now, that we keep them across over there and not closing that road and not building where they can see into my backyard. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other audience comments from anybody who did not already bring a card up? Okay, seeing none, I would move to Planning Commission discussion. We'll turn our microphones on for everybody. Is there any discussion with commissioners?
On the question of density, I kind of want to piggyback off what you were talking about earlier. Is this area also limited? Because you were asking why not 6, why is it 4? Is this area limited to only 2 floors above, additional stories above those that are neighboring?
Sounds like that is a question for staff.
So just to clarify, are you referring to what's outlined under AIM Norman?
Yes.
So for Urban Living Center, which is really where the bulk of the residential development is occurring, building types outlined as large to medium, 4 to 5 plus story buildings are common. Yeah, and so that's kind of what it proposes in there.
Okay. There's not, I'm trying to think of the ordinance, not the ordinance, but the citation. When we were talking with about the Noun Hotel expansion, and there was reference to limiting, even though like it had that same up to 6 floors, there was like a limit to how many stories above what the neighboring residential, what you could develop.
Correct.
Sorry, I have allergy brain right now. And partial allergy voice.
So the area that you're talking about is in the Center City Form-Based Code. That was a CCPUD. And yes, that does have the restriction. The area that we're talking about now does not. I mean,
Okay.
In the urban high, it also talks about 3 to 5 stories. And then, as Logan said, it's 4 to 5 plus.
But there's no limit. We don't have to necessarily consider what's right next to it versus.
The difference being that we don't have the overlay on this parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Brewer?
I was just going to make a comment on the densities. So while I would love to see additional densities that would be closer to the AIM Norman plan, it's in building design, there's a pretty well-known issue with going over 4 stories and even 5 stories, and that's that you have with 4 stories you can do wood framing. With 5 stories you have to do wood over concrete podium, and then over 5 you have to use steel at that point. So it's a cost issue. I'm not going to claim to know what the development issues are here. I mean, so the development costs and how what could pencil out, but that my assumption is that the 4-story limit is to limit the wood framing to make it cost effective. So anyway, just a note there.
Okay, I have some discussion. Just clarifying again from my questions that I had. The site plan does show the overlap over the street, but legal descriptions do commonly go to the center line or across streets. This is a normal thing that you see. Your property line may show that, but that doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want there. Those streets get dedicated to the public in a plat process. Once they're dedicated to the public, you cannot change that and take that street back over without vacating it. This is why we see street vacations, alley vacations come forward to Planning Commission. So that street could not be closed without a new item coming forward, just like the cul-de-sac that they're talking about closing. And just as a clarification, the part that they are talking about closing is the cul-de-sac parcel that's close to the library, not Willow Bend. I made sure to reach out to staff. Willow Bend is not being closed on any part of that. But when you look at the map, you will see part of the outline over Willow Bend because it's part of their legal description to describe the land. So I just wanted to clarify that because I think there was some confusion about that, and making sure that that is clear that Willow Bend is not being closed on there. I also wanted to just also mention, I talk about off-site amenities regularly on here, and I really appreciate the library being a neighbor and being neighborly with the library, because this is such a great resource for the people living there to be able to go and use the library and services there. The changes they're talking about doing with the library, I am a library user regularly and I use that driveway, but I drive all the way around the building currently and I come back out on that road that connects to Sam's Club. You will no longer be able to go through the book drop and go around the building up to the north here. You will have to exit out to that backside. That's also why I cared about that splitter and that median, because right now you cannot legally turn left. You have a median to split the traffic going into a roundabout. When the roundabout is taken out, you don't need that median, and I actually think you will have easier access leaving the library now. She'll be able to just turn left instead of forcing traffic to the right towards that 30 feet entrance on there too. So that was a kind of crucial point, and Ken Danner did confirm the intent to take that part of the median out as well for me. I appreciate the walkability. I hope there's some easy pedestrian access, even with the gating, to be able to go through there. I was the lone no vote last time we saw a project like this come forward. A lot of that had to do with the connectivity to Ed Noble Parkway and the concerns of the neighbors that we spoke with at the meeting and in advance, and their concern about having that thoroughfare connecting to Ed Noble Parkway and the traffic implications for Willow Bend. So I am much pleased by this change of this map on here. All the roads interior are private. They will be privately maintained. We won't be getting quite as much overflow traffic coming, I think, from Willow Bend, which was a major concern from the neighbors at that time. I know there was also concerns that were brought up during the audience comments about changing things, and just as a reminder, things cannot change again without doing this process and giving notice. And to that effect, as a PSA item, you can check on the county assessor at any point your address to see what your notice address is. Highly encourage that you do that. And if it's not right, please contact the county assessor and have that changed, because that is how you get notice when something's going to affect you. And it's very common to have your deed recorded and never go back and change it, even if your mailing address is changed. So if you need to change your mailing addresses, use that as a note to make sure you get the notices should anything come forward. But the fact that something has changed now doesn't mean that they couldn't come forward and ask for another change again in the future, but they have to do the whole process all over again and get a whole hearing and make sure everybody in the neighborhood are notified again and have a chance to be heard for their concerns again, just like we heard the neighbors previously on the last version. So I wanted to make those couple of comments on there. Yeah, I think, and then I do appreciate, I know it is hard having density changes that are so significant from what is currently there, but we had 642 units, I believe, last time, and now 806, which does provide more units. And I do think that this height, even if it could be higher or could be lower, is a good in-between to provide some units while still being thoughtful to the neighbors. So I'm going to be in support of this project, and yeah, if there's any other commission discussion, I'd be glad to hear it. I did actually one other item. The library also spoke about requesting that the lock-in to the 3/6/2026 site plan revision that showed it did not have ingress or egress. I personally would not be in favor of a motion that was specified to that date of a site plan, because should something else need to change on the site plan that had nothing to do with the library's parcel, I'd like there to be flexibility for planning staff to be able to accept that and have that clarity. So if a motion was potentially made that instead had a caveat to not have ingress and egress across the library parcel, or just clarifying that drive part rather than clarifying the date of the site plan, I would prefer that personally.
I agree with that.
Can I ask? Oh, can I speak?
Yeah, you're all on.
Great. Can I ask the applicant a question? I might have misheard, but it sounded like that you said you worked with the library and they were happy, but then the library came up and it sounded like they weren't happy. So can you clarify? Did you work with the library?
Yes, and it was my understanding that they liked the changes that we made. They may have more changes that they wanted, but as far as I knew.
Are you all willing to continue working with the library to try and sort out? I mean, it sounds like you've satisfied the biggest complaint, but it sounds like there might be some minor complaints to still just smooth out, iron out. Are you all willing to continue working with the library to smooth that out?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I just want to make one more comment, just to address the concern from the neighbor that spoke to the change in the plan from mixed use to additional units being added. I had a similar concern. The challenge that we're gripping with in Norman is that we have very limited site locations to build densities for apartment units, and we are far behind the curve with the number of units that we need to build. We showed a presentation at some point about just how many sites there are across Norman to build a dense apartment, which is essentially 3 stories and up, and it's extremely limited. If I remember right, it was like 18 sites total, and it could be, don't quote me on that, but it was something like that. And so we got this push and pull of building commercial with sales tax to increase sales tax, or fitting in as many units wherever we can. And I don't love that. I don't like the term mixed use for a development like this anyway, because when I think of mixed use, I think of more of a downtown Norman type environment where you've got a single property where you have a mix of uses within the building, not a mix of uses on a site plan. Because that's not mixed use. That's a separation of uses. However, we need to build as many units as we can, and so I don't love that aspect of it, but unfortunately it feels like a necessary evil if you're kind of weighing evils, from what I've heard. So with that, I'm in support of it as well. It's just a challenge we're dealing with in neighborhoods across Norman right now.
If I can add to that, this also does not contribute to urban sprawl. I think that's important to note.
I've got one question for Brandon. The sanitary sewer line that's there, have you looked at it just to make sure that nothing's going to be happening with it for a very long time, if we're going to cover it all up?
Oh, for where they're vacating.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a big trunk.
Part of the condition for the vacation is that they make a connection to reroute.
Okay.
So, yes and no.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, because, it's probably a major trunk line, cover it up, and then it's expensive for the city to come back and fix it. But if they're rerouting, that's good.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay, if there isn't any other discussion by Planning Commission, I would take a motion for this item.
I'll make a motion to approve with the specific change to the site plan that's been presented to us, that you do not have access on Norman Center Court into this apartment complex. Is that right? Is that what we're going for?
You will have access, but maybe with the library parcel, is that where you were going with?
I'm gonna try that again. I'm gonna let Steve do it. I withdraw my motion.
All right, let me go ahead and make a motion. I want to make a motion that we approve with the caveat that the drive will not be a shared drive with the Pioneer Library System property.
I second that.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I would take a vote.
You may vote. Motion passes 7-0.
Moving to our next non-consent items, I've got item number 6, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of Resolution R-2526-113, a resolution of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending all affected maps within the AIM and any of the 7 distinct approved plans in order to update affected maps with the most recent demonstrated alignment of the Access Oklahoma Turnpikes according to information announced by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. And I can read these together with it, right, or separate? And we'll go ahead and also read items 7 and 8 too. Item number 7, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of Resolution R-2526-112, a resolution of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending the AIM-Norman Comprehensive Land Use Plan to remove the 30-acre urban reserve land use minimum requirement for development and to implement other consistent changes within the urban reserve and agricultural residential land use categories. And item number 8, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of Resolution O-2526-47, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 30, subdivisions of the Code of Section 30-606A in order to remove the 30-acre minimum lot size requirement for rural certificates of survey with an urban reserve land use designation and providing for the severability thereof.
Okay. Laura Hoggett with the Planning Department. So our first item would be the AIM-Norman map updates. So the steering committee came to consensus throughout their process of working on the comprehensive land use plan, and so did the transportation subcommittee, that they would like to show the alignment that was available at that time on the maps, on a number of the maps. They also wanted to include a statement that when we received new information from OTA, we would update the maps. So we have received new information as of September 23rd, 2025. So we would be updating, I think there's 14 maps in the land use plan, 2 of which are also in the transportation plan. I think it's 2 of them. I didn't include all 14 because they're the same base map. They're just, some of them have call outs of different colors on different pages. So this would be our new character area map, and the new alignment is shown between 48th and 60th. Our new future land use map, land use map with the transportation categories, a transportation map, and another transportation project priority map. Okay, so those are our maps. Any questions on the map item? Yes. Okay.
All microphones.
I know that we ensured that there was verbiage with each of those stating that it's proposed and not like a City of Norman plan. I just want to make sure that that verbiage with any map updates is maintained. Yeah, just what the new one will say, that'd be great.
So the new one, so they're not printed directly on the maps, they're on the document pages.
Correct.
We'll get there before council. The new statement will be, AIM-Norman does not endorse or influence the development and alignment of proposed turnpikes planned in East and North Norman by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, OTA. The North-South Connector Turnpike is shown in the location disclosed by the OTA on September 23rd, 2025. The locations for the east-west and north-south locations reflect the most current information available. Should the alignments change, staff will bring forward an amendment for review and consideration by City Council.
Thank you.
And that, I think it's on like 4 pages of the document.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I have a question. Are we to that point, or do you have?
We're all asking.
Okay. Has OTA put out the formal alignment? Because my understanding is they have not put out a 30% set of an alignment to date.
This was their latest announcement on September 23rd.
Do we have to make an action on that until they formally like submit the final alignment?
I think that would probably be up to council,
Okay,
but they requested we go ahead and bring it forward.
to bring it to council. So that's kind of what we're voting on here, I guess, is approving to go to council for the discussion.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm clear.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we can move on, since that was also our applicant.
Oh, I still have 2 others.
Oh, so sorry.
Sorry. Sorry. I just wanted to do questions in little chunks. Okay, so we also have some language updates in the agricultural, residential, and the urban reserve land use categories. This was another large topic of conversation with the steering committee during the AIM Norman process. We spent probably 4 months talking about the urban reserve and what the acreage would look like, what the desired development style would be in this area. So we adopted it, or council adopted it last June with a 30-acre requirement in the urban reserve land use area. Since then, council has approached us about changing it to 10 acres, which is what was allowed before AIM and is allowed in the rest of East Norman at this time, or in A2. So this will kind of be going back to how we were before. And then in the AR land use, the other land use categories that discuss cluster development use the term cluster development. For some reason, it did not make it into AR, so we would like to add cluster development, which is the allowance to use a PUD or other appropriate regulatory process to go down to 2 acres, where 65% of the land is reserved as open space. So the easiest way to explain this is if you have 100 acres, you could do 35 of those acres in 2 or more acre lots, as long as 65 of those 100 total acres are left as open space. So it's often confused with impervious coverage, which is also 65%. That's different than the subdivision part with the open space. So hopefully that makes sense.
Are we able to ask questions on this?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty flexible if you want to ask questions as we go, since we're listening to 3
So was the change from the 10 acres to the 30 with all of the subcommittee and community input? Okay, so yes, that's how we ended up with 30 instead of 10?
Yes, just for the urban reserve area.
Okay, but now just council is requesting it get changed to 10?
We've had calls from constituents who live in this specific land use area where maybe they have 20 acres and they've been hoping to split off 10 acres for their kids or to sell it or what have you, and now they can't.
Okay.
So I think that's probably where the calls were going to council and then.
Okay.
If I could also just add some insight, 10 acres is at the state level commonly used as a regular measurement for when lot split requirements are required or not. So 10, sometimes 5, depending, is a pretty common measurement used in state language too.
There's not a ton of 30-acre lots left in this area, but that's where they ended up on.
You'd have to purchase neighbors' land to end up at 30 in some cases.
Yeah. There's not a lot of acres in 30 acres.
Okay.
This may be difficult to answer, but how did we end up with 30? I know that there was like the subcommittee, but I mean, that was a pretty big increase, and so I'm just curious what the reasoning behind that was.
Do you want to take that?
The subcommittee and the community that we were hearing from when we would go to some of the listening sessions and such, they were really looking for an area that would essentially be, I'll call it a stopgap, probably, between what we would be urbanizing, eventually coming east, and then having that area where it would almost be a buffer to the A2, the more rural areas as you're going out to the lake. And they, as a group, came up with the 30 acres.
I remember them saying, like, it's in keeping with the idea of ensuring not a quick sprawl of development east and to help preserve, conserve, and protect the land out east while also encouraging infill. So I mean, I remember feeling like it was good reasoning, but I can understand if someone's got 20 and they're wanting to split it for kids, would they not be able to do that with a PUD?
They could, but then they would also have to plat, which can be very expensive depending on public improvement requirements and
Okay.
such. Okay. And then in the UR, we are just copying over the language with the minimum lot size of 10 acres and making the cluster development definition in the same subsection of UR. Making sure that the uses really show that rural kind of area like the AR does. So really it's just a lot of language consistency. And then I will point out one thing council was asking us. So there's the urban reserve land use category. There's also a 2045 character area. That is where there's language saying development must be contiguous, you must extend urban services, and an applicant cannot request to be removed from a character area. So those requirements will be in place for development in this area, whether it's 10 or 30 acres. Okay?
Can you back up a slide? I want to make sure that I read this correctly.
Sorry, I am not a graphic designer, as some of you might know. So I couldn't figure out strike through the way we do in Word because the font that we use in this document doesn't allow for strike through. So the gray is what will be removed, red is new. Sorry, I should have said that first.
So is this saying that if you have a large, let's say a 10-acre property in this urban reserve area that you can now place an ADU?
You can now anyway by right in zoning. This is just including that it's allowed as a building type in this land use
So
category.
that it also includes barn, silo, stables, anything like that.
So just
Okay.
kind of to show the uses that are existing in this area. Okay, now for number 3, we have a very small subdivision regulation update. So this will be in Chapter 30. There's a clause that we added when we adopted AIM for when you're doing a Norman Rural Certificate of Survey. You have to have 10 acres if you're in A1 or A2 zoning. In order to implement this part of the land use plan, council adopted this language. If you're in the urban reserve land use, you have to have 30 acres or more to do a COS. So should council adopt the 10-acre resolution, then we would need to update the subregs to match that. Okay, the end. Sorry, that was a lot.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to just see if there's any other questions on any of these 3 items by commission for our staff applicant. Okay.
I have a question. What do you think is the impact? So, you know, when I hear you say you can go from 20 to 10 acres, I mean, that's a doubling of density. And if the original idea was to promote infill development, you know, what's going to, have you all thought about what the impact will be on infill development?
I don't know if I would call this infill because it's
Oh,
not really
I
like in
mean,
the
I mean
urbanized
infill inside
area.
the city, right? Because this will basically allow like some pressure release. People, there won't be such a need to develop in the city if you can push out.
Yes, which I think, I mean, I can't speak for the steering committee as a whole, but from what I gathered from our 2-year process, that was kind of the goal, was they'd like to increase density where we have services and parks and kind of increased density in the core area instead of moving out east toward the lake. There was discussion of when you have people who have 10 acres, I mean, there are people who maybe only mow the area right around their house, but there's also people who treat 5 of those acres with chemicals to treat their grass or their yard or whatever. So from the like runoff group, the stormwater kind of people, they wanted to see less of that too. So it's definitely kind of a double-edged sword. I see both sides of, you know, if I had land in my family and wanted to split it and we were finally there and now we couldn't, that's not great either. But
Yeah.
it's kind of a, which theoretical side do you fall on for development?
Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff or applicant by commission? Okay, seeing none, do we have any audience comments on any of these items? If none, we could move to planning commission discussion. We are going to vote on these. I think would be best to vote each one separately, but we can discuss together. Is there any discussion we want to have about the map changes? Because maybe we can open to that item to start with.
I did have one clarification. So, and sorry, this may be for staff, but the OTA requested that we change the maps, or the council?
Yeah, who requested? Good question.
Sorry, calm back down here. Council requested, because it was in the plan, that the steering committee would like to see the maps updated as new information is available.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
I would say that they're, at the last update that I'm aware of was December with the OTA alignment, and not September, so it has changed already, so I don't know. It's moving. For me, I would rather just wait until they say we're not moving it, because it is, anytime, if you went to their public meetings, they would say it could move this way or that way, and we still have property owners out there that don't know which way, what's going to happen with their properties, and I don't want to.
So devil's advocate of that could be people need to know so they can plan if they're purchasing or what have you.
Yeah.
Also, the maps were created in January, in January when we went to 2 different council meetings. So the latest GIS data that's available is what's on the maps from OTA.
I have neighbors who are very close and they don't know which way, and they don't know.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
think
being told
it's
not
kind
until
of
we.
within like 1,000 feet or something. It's not, that's my understanding, but.
I think our director has a comment to make.
So I just want to say that you're right. I believe that we will continue to see small changes. I mean, if there was something in December, I mean, it's very possible we may be back 2 or 3 times before this is 100%. And when you're talking about the design, you said 30% designs, you're talking about the east-west, right?
No, north-south.
The north-south?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I agree with Laura, and there's been many people that we've talked to about trying to get this forward, and it was a discussion when we were working on AIM, is to make sure that we keep these maps updated.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I could probably see us come back maybe 1 or 2 times. I don't know, maybe we won't, you know.
Yeah.
But I think keeping the maps as up to date as we can, because a lot of people may not know where to find that information, and if they're Norman residents and they do want to look, and it is on our map, and we had it further east, but yet OTA is showing it further west, I would rather have what they have on their map right now. And Rick in our GIS does take that layer directly from them.
Yeah.
So.
Can Laura, can you go back to the map that shows the? I know it's quite a ways back.
Which one?
Yeah, the one that has it says the proposed route OTA on it. I think it's maybe 2 or 3 forward.
So these all have the new route on it.
Well, yeah, I see the dotted line, but one of them said on there. Yeah, there we go. Is there, like, kind of to Commissioner Parker's comment. Is there, I don't know if it's on the map or like annotated below, that shows the date of the latest proposal. I think that that might be helpful as well for further clarification to show, you know, when the latest proposed, just a thought, you know, just so that way, if there is somebody who they don't know where to see where this proposal is, at least they can come to this map and say, okay, this is the latest proposal as of this date. So
I'm trying to, I can't, my eyes are not that great anymore. In addition to the statement, we're gonna have under it about when this one was released. Like you want the date that the info was taken from.
I don't know what else is on there. It may not be a good suggestion. I'm just trying to think about just so as we're updating maps, at least there's reference to this is the latest proposal.
Well, or let me, I like your idea a lot, or just say that this map was updated as of a certain date.
To match OTA's
No,
current
I don't want,
plans.
I would just say this was based upon the information, this is what it was updated to
Yeah.
on that map. Okay.
So our current maps actually don't have that date on there. I think a revision date would make sense, but
that's
we may revise for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with OTA specifically. So I would be in favor of possibly a revision date, maybe a separate page, like a caveat about when the dates were in there, but I don't know that, I think it's as necessarily to put the OTA's date on each and every single map.
And
as
to your
much as
point
our
about
revision.
maps changing, like if we have people coming in asking for land use amendments, we will be doing an update of our documents much more frequently than we did our 2025. So we're hoping even annually, I mean, I don't want to see plan changes really, but that if council were to approve plan changes, they would be reflected in the document. Because 2025 was the same map, even after amendments.
In general, I'm in favor of showing changes on here and having to come back a few times so somebody can look up their map and have an idea before they buy a property or maybe look at doing a development, even if it's not perfect. I think taking some step, even if we only do this once a year and they update 4 times a year, I think that is better than just leaving as is. I appreciate the city coming forward to make that transparency a little better for development.
Out of curiosity, what is the cost of taxpayer dollars involved every time there's an update? Like, I know a lot of it's online, so I'm hoping it's nominal, but.
It's just part of staff time. So
Perfect, so it's already.
other duties as
Account,
assigned.
yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, we have a
Just
GIS department
Just
too.
in the spirit of full transparency.
Yes.
So nobody believes that we're
Oh, no, it'd
spending
be the
money to
same as
update maps
updating,
willy-nilly.
Water line map or
Yeah.
any of that. It's the same people.
Yes.
We are here to serve, yes.
Sorry, you know, I'm looking at this, I have a question. I'm looking at this proposed minor arterial rural that goes across this northern leg of Thunderbird. Is the Bureau of Reclamation going to approve this? I mean, I'll be honest, I think this would devastate that part of the lake, just straight devastate it. And I'm
We had
guessing a lot of
David
people haven't been there because you can't get there unless you go by boat.
Yeah.
And, or if you're a hunter or a fisherman, but
Yeah, the nature of the lines shown on that map is if you don't put them on the map, you never get them. Just because they're on the map doesn't mean anything's gonna happen with them.
can I ask why we would want it? I mean, so I understand why I don't want it.
There were issues when there were floods that people couldn't get from one point to another. So it's trying to avert something like that from happening again.
Are there other ways to solve that problem?
Are you talking about the north,
I think he's talking.
He's talking about Franklin Road, I believe.
Yep, Franklin.
the dotted line across the lake? The wildfires a year ago.
Yeah.
People were, people could have been, I don't know if there were, but there was great difficulty fighting the wildfires and egress safely away from them. So that bridge would act, if there was to be that would actually be a safety feature, and it would mean not having to drive all the way around it with water tankers to refill and come back. We don't have hydrants in the land out there that were on fire in those wildfires. If that makes sense.
It makes sense, but I mean, I'm wondering if the juice is worth the squeeze.
I
mean,
would
you're-
also
you're
just
losing a
like to
lot.
make sure we're talking about this agenda item. Maybe we could table that for another discussion, since that's actually not part of this item on our agenda.
Is it not
Miscellaneous.
on the map?
The map adjustment that we're talking about is for the OTA revision. This was part of the AIM plan. I would like to maybe see that as a separate item that maybe we would look at bringing, but it's not part of what we're discussing today for the OTA specific map change. So if we could maybe look at bringing that up as a separate item that we can put on our agenda and discuss. We've kind of talked about that with some of the traffic items before too. You might stay close just in case. Okay, and are there any other on the map, the OTA map adjustments on there? Do we have any other discussion for that item? Okay, so I'm going to move on. They're very similar for items 7 and 8, but talking about the change from 30 to 10 acres, can we maybe move to discussion for that item?
I mean, I guess I'll just kind of repeat, I think just by cutting this lot size in half, what you're doing is you're doubling the density. And if we're wanting to have infill development, then all we're doing is releasing the pressure valve to let people move out more. And, you're taking people away from like the core city services. So if you want people having access to, high quality bus routes, you're going to need density. And if we let that density just sprawl out, then it's going to be harder to justify having these high quality amenities that you see in developed cities. So while I'm sympathetic to this idea, I like, if I had 20 acres and I could give half of it to my kids, that'd be great. But when we talk about making zoning changes, one of the things we're required to think about is not just what the current applicant wants to do, but what are all the possibilities that can happen once you change that zoning. And so, while I'm sympathetic to someone who says, I'd like to take my individual property and split it in half, what we're saying is take all the properties and split them in half that are 20 acres. That's a lot. So I think if there were special cases, those could be resolved through, a PUD. And so I think that I'd rather keep that pressure to create, infill development by keeping, our ordinance so that there's less density in the rural area. So I'm probably not going to vote to support that change.
Could I see the exact verbiage for item 7 only, just so I can cement it in my brain what language we were looking at for 7 versus 8?
Yes, so it might.
Please and thank you.
It's kind of hard to do, like as a presentation, but do you have your packet? Or would you like to look at mine?
No.
There
I don't
are.
have my computer.
Do you want this
No.
one?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, it's kind of hard to do presentations with the text changes, but the full AR and UR pages are in your packets too, if you wanted to read the entirety of them.
Can we just talk about functionality of what can be developed when it's a 30-acre minimum or a 10-acre minimum? Does it change the number of houses you can put on a total of 3 10 acres versus a 30-acre parcel?
No. It's one dwelling unit, one primary principal dwelling unit, plus an ADU is allowed, or a guest house, sorry, in A1 and A2. So if you have 3 10-acre lots, you could end up with technically 6 dwelling units, I guess, if everyone had an ADU equivalent. If you had 30 acres, you'd have 2. So the zoning for these would more than likely be A2. So the uses don't necessarily change, but it would be kind of like you're saying, 2 versus 6.
And what about, you kind of mentioned about the cluster development, any difference in numbers of units and between a 10-acre or a 30-acre base, or 3 10 acres versus 1 30-acre?
Since that's more percentage based, it's kind of, that is a little more like case by case, I think. That'd be harder to answer.
Well, but it's also referencing lots down to 2 acres.
But that's if you do the PUD, and then they would have to plat that you can't COS down to 2 acres. So
And that's my point, is then why are we putting that in there? To me, that's fast tracking development out east instead of keeping it at 10. Like if we're changing the language to 10, let's.
yeah, well, that's already in there. That's been allowed since
Right, no,
1999. Just
Right.
to-
But what I'm saying is, what they're wanting is to go back to that plus add the down to 2.
Yeah, I think they wanted to keep the option for council to approve things that have the creative development allowing for the open space to protect natural features.
Clustering development was already an opportunity before we ever adopted AIM. So that's just a carryover.
Right, but that's like with actual neighborhoods, not necessarily splitting. Like that's on the cluster.
So that's where my question came, is somebody came to develop a neighborhood, what's the difference you would get on 3 10
yes.
acres versus a 30-acre? So just what are those possibilities on there?
So just from research we've done on the 2-acre thing. So RE zoning, which is allowed down to 2 acres, was something that was being requested a number of times in like the 70s and the 80s. This is kind of like RE, but still protecting 65% of it. So you're still allowing people to do the 2 acres. It's more affordable. You can cluster them while also protecting the natural part of East Norman. That's what I gathered from research.
So my general perspective on this is I don't actually think that changing the base parcel requirement is going to add a significant additional development. I mean, you did say it would be 4 more units, potentially 4 more dwelling units, 2 primary and 2 ADUs, ADUs being 650 square feet or less, potentially.
Not in A2, sorry.
So, thank you for.
What's the limit on A2? I can't remember.
Smaller than the principal.
Okay, so smaller than, okay, thank you for
Subordinate
clarifying.
to
Thank you for clarifying that. I needed that reference. So potentially two more houses per lot, so you'd be looking on 30 acres, getting 4 more houses, which is more intense, but I don't know that that feels substantially more intense. I do appreciate, 10 acres comes up a lot in like surrounding communities, which not every community is the same as Norman. We have many features that are unique to us, and I appreciate that, like our watershed and Lake Thunderbird. But 10 acres is a lot more uniform across other communities at the state level for land division. From an affordability perspective, if you want to move out and have some land, 10 acres is a lot easier to find as an available parcel. This was one of the comments that came up. How many parcels are actually out there that are 30 acres or more? And what are you looking at for the cost difference? If you're not necessarily looking to build a ranch, but maybe have family land, 10 acres makes that a little bit more achievable for a regular resident who does just want to have a house, maybe with an accessory unit. And so in general, I wasn't there for all of the listening sessions, and being cautious of not changing something that was so well thought out by others. I'm very sensitive to that, but this doesn't feel like it's actually making a lot of substantial changes. It's bringing things more in line with where things hit with other communities, and I think it actually adds affordability for people who want to live in a rural area and build a house. So just a thought that I had on that.
Laura, you mentioned, just kind of as an offhand comment, that there weren't many 30-acre parcels left anyway. Do you have any idea how many that is? And
I was just thinking I'm gonna have to go back and look. Our consultant did count them, but I admittedly do not remember the.
No, that's
the
fine.
number.
I was curious about 30 and 20, just like
Yeah.
how much we're actually talking about here.
I know they found 30 for us, but I'm not sure. I mean, they probably did 30 and then less than 30, but I'd have to go back and hunt. Sorry.
I'm open to some disagreeing opinions, absolutely, but I feel like 10 is reasonable. I do think limitations should be on there, but 10 feels reasonable to me on there.
I don't disagree with the 10. I just don't. It almost feels like we're suggesting that people cluster develop a lot in the area by adding that verbiage where they can come to a PUD and they can take advantage of the opportunity to do it and just change the verbiage to 10.
Yeah.
But if they
think
do a cluster, they
since-
have to come back in, correct?
And
Yeah.
they have to plat, which
They
is
have to
where
plat,
They have to
public
come in,
improvement.
they have to do
Which is true.
everything that, and so that would actually be in front of us and millions.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't see the future, obviously, but we've had 3 of those since 1999, so. Plating it's a significant expense.
Okay.
And also, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
In the UR, we do still have the 2045 character area, so the contiguous and services.
I was forgetting that. Thank you.
Okay, do we want to discuss this one any longer? You want to move to the next one?
Let's move to the next one, unless
Okay.
somebody else.
All right, let's come on to 8. You want to pull the language up for that one too? Any discussion on this particular item? I think this kind of falls in line with our discussion of item 7, but being as a distinct item, any other discussion or maybe another thought from the last item we want to visit on? Okay. If we don't have any more discussion on any of these items, we could move starting with item number 6, which again is the OTA map item, if we would like to make a motion on that.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I would take a vote.
You may vote. All votes have been cast. Motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Parker voting against.
Moving on to item number 7, this is the major item for going from 30 to 10 acres of the 2 that were similar. Not that it's more major than others, but moving from 30 to 10 is again the lot on there, minimum lot size. Does somebody want to make a motion for that one?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Will you show the correct slide that matches? I think isn't that showing 8?
Yeah, this is from item 8, but
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry. Run, baby.
I know I'm awkward, I'm sorry. Which one?
Item
Just the
7,
back
the
one.
language.
Yeah.
Which part would you like?
The annotated language change, will you go to that?
There's,
Uh,
here's AR, cluster development. UR, 10 acres.
Go back one.
Oh, sorry. This one?
It's the first red highlighted there.
Future residential development should have a minimum lot size of 10 acres. And then the cluster development language.
I'm gonna hold in case there's any other discussion on this motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the 65%, was that in the previous language from the 2025 plan?
Yes.
Or is that, it was? Okay.
Mhm.
I have a copy of it too, if you want to see.
It was also a fun fact in the 2020 plan.
That's okay. I have an employee that lives on one of these 2-acre type plots too, out, and the whole back is WQPZ of their property, and it's mostly open space. They divide it off from next door neighbor, which is their parents. So this does happen very commonly on family land. Now, they're in the smaller items on there too, but I think they actually had a similar type of environment. It's very common to divide this up amongst family, and I know that they would not have been able to buy 10 acres from their parents. They would have only been able to get the 2. So I'm just going to add that comment too, when you see some of that firsthand.
My parents bought off some of my sister's land so they could live right next door.
How much land did your sister have beforehand, and how much did they buy?
This is public. I don't think she wants me to say.
Allegedly.
Was it allegedly 10 acres or less that they bought from her?
Oh.
Maybe you don't want to answer that.
You know, I'm not sure. It may have been. May have been. May have been.
Okay, moving on. Do we want to discuss this item, or we do have a motion for approval on item number 7? Any other discussion on the item or on the motion that we want to make, or are we ready for a vote?
Just one clarification. Was the PUD thing down to 2 acres was there regardless of whether it was 10 acres or 30 acres, correct?
Correct. We just moved it up from, it is now in description and context instead of under building types, because I'm not sure why it was there in the first place, but we just wanted it to be formatted similarly to other categories.
Okay. I mean, I'll just say, one thing I like, about the existing language is that it's not that you can't develop out there. There's just a little bit of friction. And that little bit of friction can push towards infill development. And so I like that friction because I want us to infill. I'll be honest, I'm excited that we're building, what is it, a 7 to 9 story building, 7 to 9 story building on Boyd. And if we're able to sprawl, they're going to sprawl. But if we're not able to sprawl, then we're going to have to push up.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call our vote.
You may vote. Motion passes 5-2 with Commissioner Jablonski and Commissioner Kendall voting against.
Moving on to item number 8, which, if you will go ahead and pull that screen up again for us too. Oh, got it. It'll change in a second, I guess. But that is the language adjustment, that one strike through is there. There it goes. This is the item we are now voting on. I would take a motion for this item.
Move to approve.
I second it.
Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I would take a vote.
You may vote. Votes have been cast. Motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Jablonski voting against.
Okay, moving on, we have a few postponement items, starting with item number 9, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2526-30, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove lots 14 through 17 and lots 28 through 36, all of Block 4 in Hardy Rucker addition to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from the R1 Single Family Dwelling District and R3 Multifamily Dwelling District, and place the same in a SPUD, Simple Planned Unit Development, and providing for the severability thereof. 420 East Lindsay Street, Ward 7. The applicant has requested postponement to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Again, that is the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Since it's a postponement, we don't have any presentation or discussion. Do we have a motion on that item requested be postponed to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting?
I move to approve postponement of item 9 to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second it.
And if no discussion, we'll take a vote.
You may vote. All votes have been cast. Motion passes 7-0.
Item number 10, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2526-39, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove Lot 3 and Block 1 of Springbrook Addition, Section 2, a replat of Lot 6, Block 1, Springbrook Addition, Section 6 to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from the C1 Local Commercial District, and place the same in a SPUD, Simple Planned Unit Development District, and providing for the severability thereof. 1130 Rambling Oaks Drive, Ward 3. The applicant requests postponement to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Would we be able to get a motion on this one as well?
Yes, I move to move to approve the postponement of item 10 to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second it.
No discussion on the motion. I would take a vote.
You may vote.
Moving on to item number 11, consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2526-45, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove a tract of land located in the southeast quarter of section 27, Township 9 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from the R1 Single Family Dwelling District, RM2 Low Density Apartment District, RM6 Medium Density Apartment District, A2 Rural Agricultural District, and C1 Local Commercial District to a PUD, Planned Unit Development of said city, and providing for the severability thereof, northwest corner of intersection of 36th Avenue Northeast and East Alameda Street, Ward 6. The applicant requests postponement to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. I would take a motion.
I move to approve the postponement of item number 11 to the April 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? If not, we can vote.
You may vote. All votes passes 7-0.
Okay, moving on, we are in miscellaneous discussion for Planning Commission and staff. Just as a note for Planning Commission, it's just staff, and we had some visitors, so I can stay after and visit with you, but this time will actually just be for staff and commission's miscellaneous discussion. Is there any items for the staff or commission? I don't know why you keep going to the back of the room, Laura.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay, so we got our pro-housing grant, we got our action proof plan by HUD in December. We are finally on, I'm gonna say we're 98.7% finished with the contract. So we are hoping to have it on the March 24th council agenda. So then you will be hearing from us about meeting with the consultant team, doing some listening sessions. You guys will be a little more hands-on involved with the zoning and subregs update and the parking study. Like a little more hands-on than you were with AIM. So stand by for info on that.
Thank you. Any other discussions for commissioners? Do you want to bring up any other items for the map? This
I
good
know, I was
time.
going to say, you can talk about that bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I think it's a really bad idea for the city. I mean, it's a wonderful natural resource. And once, so just to remind everyone, we looked at this map, and Lake Thunderbird is shaped like an L. And already we cut across Alameda. If you don't have access to natural resources, you can't enjoy natural resources. And so You know, I think you could say, well, why would you want this road going across part of the lake, which is out where Alameda is? Well, it provides some resources. It allows people to see there is a lake, and it's something to enjoy. But if we started putting lots of roads across the lake, then we'd start to take away from that resource. Tell you what, I will take people up there in a boat, a sailboat, so it'll be fun. And you can see what it is, because if you don't go on a sailboat, you're not going to see what that part of the lake is.
Yeah.
And it's a place where people fish and people hunt and recreate. And it's not a place to motorboat. It gets too shallow up there.
Yeah.
So it's a certain kind of slow recreation. And anytime we can do it a group trip, we can take we can fit all of us
It would,
on a sailboat.
it would be a meeting though if we have a quorum, correct? So, but
No, not if it's, oh, well, this is. an
Yes,
item.
it is.
Well, okay, well, then we're going to invite the public too. Anyone who wants to come.
we can live stream it.
Yeah.
I would assume our city attorney would caution us against any Open Meetings Act violations, but maybe small groups on multiple trips,
Okay.
Yes.
not discussing
Yeah.
business.
It's about 7 minutes from my house, so
So you know.
yeah. Yeah, we boat out there on a sailboat and we fish all the time. At the same time, we have livestock, and I know, like, I had the worries a year ago with those wildfire conditions, and I know people that were impacted. So it's one of those things, it's a double-edged sword. And sometimes, if it's a safety related, sometimes I'm going to tip that way, where most of the time, I protect the trees, the water, and my A2 land. But yeah, I'll help you with those small groups.
Any other comments or miscellaneous discussion by commissioners? If there's nothing else to come before the commission, I will declare the meeting adjourned.